All right, so I had some video trouble on this one, so I went ahead and fill these out, but I'm gonna talk through these. We're gonna look at some of the pitfalls of surveys, just some of the things that could go wrong. And so let's just get right into it. A uniformed police officer interviews a group of 20 college freshmen. She asks each one his or her name if they've used a legal drug in the past month. So is this useful data? Well, this is not going to be very useful. Okay, let's think about it. A police officer is asking you if you use illegal drugs or not. Okay, and so are you going to answer? Like the first thing I would say is, I just don't know if you're going to answer truthfully. Are you going to admit to a cop that you use illegal drugs? Okay, so that's one thing. So you're probably going to get some data that might not really represent the person, or you're going to have people that refuse to participate. Okay, people that refuse to participate, that's called non-response. Okay, you can call it non-response bias. Basically, they refuse to participate, and these people, might think differently than the people that do participate. So if you're likely not to participate, there's probably a difference in your whether you use drugs or not versus the people that do participate. Also, some might not answer truthfully. You could call that interview influence there, because the influence of the interviewer, basically it forces them to give a response that's not accurate, that does not reflect what they truly like, if they truly use drugs or not. So this has got all kinds of issues, and you're going to get data here that does not represent the population. Okay. B, Jessica saw some data that shows that cities with more low-income housing have more homeless people. Does building low-income housing cause homelessness? Now, first off, you've heard this thing in statistics. We don't talk about a lot in here. Correlation does not imply causation. You might have seen that in a statistics class, a psychology class. That's something to keep in mind. But let's say you have a big city like Little Rock, and let's say you have a little city like Mayflower, okay? So Little Rock has more low-income housing, and Little Rock has more homeless people. Now, is Little Rock have more homeless people because of low-income housing, or are there other variables in there that cause them to have more homeless people besides low-income housing? Yes, there's other variables. We call those confounding lurking variables. There's other variables causing this response, more homeless people, than just this variable. Okay, and so that the variable could be obviously the size of the city. Little Rock's a lot bigger city, so maybe having a lot bigger city might be what's causing this problem versus just this variable low income housing. You can go in a lot of different areas there, but there's other variables in there that causing a different response for this than just this variable. So that's called confounding/lurking variables hiding in there. C, a survey about food in the student cafeteria was conducted to having forms available for customers to pick up the cash register. A drop box completed forms are available outside of the cafeteria. So this is what we call voluntary response. They fill out a survey. They don't have to. They're volunteering to respond. Okay. Now the question is, who responds to surveys? Who's most likely to respond to surveys? Well, people with strong feelings about a subject are more likely to respond. And so let's think about this in the real world. When are you likely to respond to a survey? When things are fine, or when you're upset about something? I think for me, if I'm really upset about something, I'm more likely to respond. If I'm fine with something, I'm content. I'm not going to really say much about it. I might give a positive review, but people are more likely to respond and get worked up if they are not satisfied with it. And so what happens is the people that respond, the responses they get don't represent maybe what the true population is, maybe overrepresents the negativity. And the surveys that are selected do not represent all the positive things, maybe fairly. And so that's just something you have to keep in mind. Voluntary response, not a great way to collect data. By the way, all these are bad. D, extensive studies on coronary problems were conducted using men over age 50 as the subjects. Okay. And so basically this problem here is this study could be good to generalize for men over 50, but the problem is you cannot use the findings for men over 50 to represent everybody, because men over 50 are going to have different issues in relation to coronary problems than like women, maybe that young women or young men. And so conclusions for males over 50 are not going to necessarily generalize other age gender groups. So just because there's men over 50 have a certain, level of coronary problems, that wouldn't necessarily reflect like what the coronary problems would be for, females in their 30s. Okay. So basically we've got a very narrow selection sample selection here. And so this group can only generalize really for males over 50, but it would not represent younger people and people that were females. Okay, so just some idea. These are, as I said, these are all kind of bad, and they've got some issues here that would cause you to get come up with conclusions that don't necessarily represent what the population says.